Hello Year 2, it's Miss Hull here. Because we're enjoying our book, The Boy Who Made the World Disappear, so much, I thought I would read chapter 9 for you today. A lot happened in this chapter, so I'm going to show you the pages so that you can read along with me at home. Let's get started. Chapter 9. To Harrison's great relief, the next morning everything felt like it was back to normal. He'd had a restful sleep, free of anxious dreams about Hector Broom and Blue, and there was no black hole tied to the bottom of his bed. I wonder if you can remember where he'd put his black hole at the end of chapter 8. But when he arrived in the kitchen, ready for his breakfast, there was no sign of his parents or sister, which was most definitely not normal. Maybe they've slept in, he thought. He climbed the stairs to check their bedrooms. He looked in on Lana, who was still fast asleep, but his parents' bed was empty. Where were they? He went downstairs again, and this time he noticed the front door was ever so slightly ajar. He put on his shoes and went to investigate. With a sigh of relief, he saw his mother and father standing in the front garden, looking over the fence. And they weren't alone. All their neighbours from the lane were there too, chattering excitedly and pointing at something just out of sight. Harrison walked over to see what was going on, and when he reached the grown-ups, he could hardly believe his eyes. The Hardwicks cottage had completely disappeared. All of it. The walls, the roof, the windows, all gone. The only thing that remained was the floor. The grey and white squares of lino from the kitchen, the mustard-coloured carpets from the front room, and the balding doormat that had been just inside the back door. The only piece of furniture left was the downstairs loo, bolted to the floor in the middle of a square of faded pink carpet. You remember we talked about the word loo meaning the same as toilet. And there, hovering right in the middle of it all, was the black hole, now twice the size it had been the night before. Harrison gulped. I've heard of a roof blowing off, Chris the farmer was saying, and maybe the odd window being broken in a storm, but never anything like this. Those walls were made of solid stone, said Ginny from Cuckoo Cottage. There's not a wind in the world that could shift that. Isn't that your balloon, Harrison? Asked his father. What's that doing there? Said Harrison, not really sure how he could explain everything to his father. This was like something from a nightmare. Somehow his black hole must have got loose in the wind and swallowed the cottage with the Hardwicks inside it. He had to get it back, or it might gobble up the entire street. Maybe, began Harrison's mother. Everyone turned to look at her. Maybe they moved it? The house? In the night? Moved it? Asked Chris. Yes, said Harrison's mother, not sounding sure at all. Stone by stone? I've heard of people doing that. If they really love a house and they have enough money, maybe the Hardwicks are eccentric millionaires and we just never knew it. Everyone fell silent. Eccentric millionaires moving an entire cottage seemed extremely unlikely, but no one else could think of another explanation that made more sense. Harrison quietly started to walk down the garden path towards the garden gate. The really strange thing is that there's no debris anywhere, Chris said. Not a chip of stone, not a scrap of wood, not a flake of slate. It's like the cottage vanished into thin air. Which was when Harrison heard his father say, What do you think you're doing? Harrison, who was now halfway up the Hardwicks garden path, stopped in his tracks. Nothing, replied Harrison. Don't say nothing, said his father. You're obviously doing something. I'm fetching my balloon, said Harrison, trying to look innocent. The wind was picking up again, and the black hole started to drift. You're just going to have to leave it there, his father told him. Someone's kidnapped the Hardwicks and stolen their house. It's too dangerous for you to be wandering around, and the police are going to have to dust for fingerprints. We must leave everything untouched. But I need it, argued Harrison. "Don't be silly," said his father. "No one needs a balloon. People need cars and knee operations and slotted spoons to drain pasta. Nobody needs a balloon." Harrison had to think quickly. "I'm taking it to show and tell," he said, crossing his fingers behind his back once again. So he's done that with his fingers. "Show and tell?" his mother asked. "I thought that was just in reception." "It's a special one for the whole school," Harrison fibbed. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw that the black hole had moved across the Hardwicks garden towards the fence. He needed to grab its string before it did any more damage. Thankfully, at that very moment, a fire engine came clanking up the lane and hissed to a halt outside the Hardwicks cottage. Or rather, it hissed to a halt outside where the Hardwicks cottage used to be. 2 red-faced firefighters clambered down from the cab, and all the grown-ups rushed to tell them what had happened. Harrison seized his chance and raced after the black hole as fast as his legs would carry him. But just as his hand was closing around the string, there was a downward gust of wind, and the black hole rushed upwards. Harrison watched in horror as it leapt the fence and took flight. It was heading straight for his sister's bedroom. Without a moment's delay, Harrison raced across the front garden, in through the open front door, and up the stairs. He grabbed the footstool from the bathroom, sprinted to his sister's room, and placed it under the open skylight. Through the open window, Harrison could see the string of the black hole twitching as if it was alive. He tried to reach the black hole, though even with the stool, he was just too short to grab the string. Thinking quickly, he jumped down, grabbed all of Lana's storybooks, and stacked them on the top step of the footstool. He climbed back on top of them, which brought him a little closer, but the string was still way out of reach. "Ah!" he cried in frustration. Lana, who up until that point had been sleeping peacefully, despite the kerfuffle, stirred and rubbed her eyes. "What you doing?" she asked, sitting up in bed. "Trying to stop us being eaten alive," said Harrison. "Do you want to play cleaning?" asked Lana, not grasping the seriousness of the situation at all. Cleaning was her favourite game. She had a little toy cleaning cart with a bucket and mop and a feather duster and her very own toy squeegee mop. "Not now! We're about to be disappeared," replied Harrison, running to his bedroom. "Where is it? Where is it?" he asked as he flung toy after toy out from under his bed. "Aha!" he exclaimed, holding up his robot claw in triumph. He ran back into Lana's room and climbed on the stool again. All he needed to do now was grab the string with the claw. But it wasn't at all easy. The black hole was bobbing and weaving in the wind, its string fluttering behind it like the tail of a kite. "Do you want to clean the window?" asked Lana, offering Harrison the bucket in a way that wasn't very helpful at all. "Lana!" called Harrison, looking down at her in frustration. Suddenly the claw lurched in his hand, as if gripped by an extremely powerful force. Glancing back up, Harrison saw that the tips of its fingers were touching the black hole. "Lana, help!" called Harrison, feeling that not only was he about to lose his robot claw, but himself as well. He thought Lana might see the danger he was in and hang on to his legs, but instead she tickled his right knee with her toy feather duster. "It's pulling me in!" he cried. Lana turned her attention to his left knee. His feet began to leave the footstool. Harrison stared at the black hole. It was like looking into some sort of tunnel, while time and space swirled around him. Was that blue he could see, somersaulting round and round? And the Hardwicks cottage, rolling and tumbling like a jumper in a tumble dryer? Harrison was gripped by a terrible curiosity. What would happen if he didn't let go? What would it be like inside a 100% genuine black hole? He looked at his knuckles, turning white as he gripped the handle of the robot claw, and let go. For a few awesome seconds, he seemed to balance in mid-air, as if the black hole was deciding whether to swallow him or spit him out. And then he fell with a clatter onto the floor. I'm just going to go back there because there's an illustration on this page here that shows you Harrison and Lana being very unhelpful there with her feather duster. Very helpfully, Lana put the cleaning bucket on his head. "I'm hungry," she said. "I want some toast." Harrison pulled the bucket off his head and watched the black hole through the open skylight. Frozen on its surface was the robot claw, slowly fading from view. That had been a very close call indeed. And what was he going to do now? He couldn't just leave the black hole hovering outside. Harrison's eyes came to rest on Lana's squeegee mop. That might work. He could use the mop to grab the string. Getting back up on the footstool, he raised the mop up through the skylight, worked the handle, and watched the sponge close on the string of the black hole. As gently as he could, Harrison pulled the black hole in through the open skylight, taking care that it didn't touch the window frame. Then he drew the head of the squeegee mop towards him, hand over hand, until he could get a firm grasp on the string. Harrison breathed a huge sigh of relief. Then his stomach sank again as he realised what he had to do. It was time to tell his parents the truth. And that there brings us to chapter 10 the next time we read. So there we have it. That was chapter 9 of The Boy Who Made the World Disappear by Ben Miller. I really hope you enjoyed that chapter. Hopefully the next chapter we read, we will all be in school together. Until then, stay safe and hopefully we will see you soon. Bye, Year 2.